You think you know history, like really know it. You've read the textbooks, maybe watched a documentary or two. But what if I told you that a lot of what we thought was settled, carved in stone or simply lost to time? Well, it isn't. What if ancient civilizations were doing things we swore they couldn't? Or societies experimented with these like radical ideas that just vanished for millennia? What if even the very concepts of ancient cultures are being completely upended, like right now as we speak? Welcome to the cool, weird, and possible. This is the deep dive into the latest bombshell discoveries that are truly rewriting ancient history. So let's unpack this. For centuries, right, our understanding of history has been built on these, well, exception narratives. But what's so compelling right now is how history isn't static. It's like a living thing, constantly being reinterpreted as new evidence pops up. It's not about denying the past, not at all, but more like enriching and refining our knowledge of it. And honestly, often in really surprising ways.
That's a really crucial point. This process, you could call it historical reevaluation, maybe.
Yeah.
Isn't about some grand agenda to, alter what happened. It's simply how historians, archaeologists, scientists, how they incorporate new data. And that data could be from advanced techniques like DNA analysis or 3D modeling or even newly translated text. It helps gain a more complete, more accurate picture. It actively challenges the orthodox views, the stuff we thought we knew for sure. And that's exactly the pattern we're seeing with some of these extraordinary recent finds.
Yeah, and these aren't just minor tweaks to the timeline, are they? Some of these discoveries are like shattering entire chapters we thought were totally finished. Take, for instance, what we thought we knew about ancient seafaring. How far early civilizations could actually venture from shore.
Oh, absolutely. A remarkable discovery from 2024 perfectly illustrates this. It's the Canaanite shipwreck found off the coast of Israel. So this is a 3,300-year-old ship. Measures between, say, 39 and 46 feet long. And it was discovered by an ROV, a remote-operated vehicle, basically an underwater robot exploring the seabed.
Oh.
Its huge significance lies not just in its age or its incredible preservation. I mean, it was untouched for millennia, its cargo of hundreds of intact Canaanite amphorae.
Amphorae, those are the big jars, right?
Exactly, those large ancient jars, used for goods like honey, olive oil, wine, that kind of thing,
Yeah.
still largely preserved inside. But the truly astonishing part, its location. It was found way out from shore, completely out of sight of land.
Well, wait, far from land. But weren't we taught Bronze Age ships just hugged the coast, that they needed to see land? This really changes the picture of early navigation, doesn't it? It makes you wonder, how did they navigate so far out, like way out in the open ocean? Were they secretly using advanced tech or mapping stars with like crazy precision we didn't think they had?
Well, it absolutely reshapes our understanding of Bronze Age trade networks and their seafaring capabilities. Its position strongly suggests that ancient mariners were indeed relying on sophisticated celestial navigation. So yes, using the stars and the sun to guide them. This pushes the known boundaries of interregional trade and exploration far beyond previous assumptions. It really highlights an incredible level of ingenuity and navigational knowledge we just hadn't fully appreciated before.
Okay, that's wild. And it's not just about technology, right? What about how societies were actually structured? We often tend to assume this like straightforward path towards complex hierarchical governments, kings and priests and all that. But a discovery in Mesopotamia suggests that maybe wasn't always the path taken, or maybe not always a permanent one.
That's a truly counterintuitive finding, yeah. So in Shaki Kora, which is in Iraqi Kurdistan, up in northern Mesopotamia, it's a site dating to around 3,800, 3,500 BCE. Archaeologists found clear evidence of a community developing into a city. They found communal centers, evidence of public rituals, all indicating a deliberate shift toward more centralized social organization.
Okay, so they were on the road to becoming a full-blown city-state, kind of like the famous ones down south in Mesopotamia. What happened next? Did, like, another city take them over, or did it just collapse from infighting or something?
Well, what happened next is precisely what's so surprising and frankly fascinating. After several generations of this development, the population just dispersed. The settlement downsized significantly, and these centralized institutions, they just vanished, poof. And they didn't reappear in that specific region for another 1,500 years. It strongly suggests a conscious move away from centralization.
They just decided not to have a big government after starting one. Imagine a society doing that today. It's almost like they knew something we're still figuring out, about choosing different paths for community, for organization, breaking free from the system, maybe?
Well, this discovery fundamentally challenges that long-held assumption that hierarchical, centralized governments were somehow inevitable. or a permanent stage in the development of early complex societies. It suggests ancient communities actively experimented with governance, and sometimes, maybe, consciously decided against that centralized model. They chose alternative paths to societal organization, different from, say, the really powerful city-states forming in southern Mesopotamia around the exact same time.
Hmm.
It shows more diversity in early urbanism than we thought.
Right. Okay, speaking of reframing entire histories, there's a fascinating new genetic study, and it's completely changing our perspective on one of the most famous trading civilizations out there, the Phoenicians.
Ah, yes, this is a groundbreaking one. This ancient DNA study from around 2024-2025 has truly shifted the narrative. See, for decades, the common assumption was that Phoenician culture spread across the Mediterranean through waves of settlers, people coming from modern-day Lebanon, setting up all these colonies. However, this massive DNA study looked at individuals from 14 different coastal sites, places traditionally called Phoenicians, all across the Mediterranean. And it revealed that most people in these so-called colonies carried little or sometimes no Levantine Canaanite ancestry. That's the genetic signature we'd expect from the Phoenician homeland.
Hold on, so the Phoenician colonies weren't actually full of people who are genetically, like, Phoenician from Lebanon.
Oh, yeah.
That's quite a revelation. It kind of flips the whole idea of colonization on its head, doesn't it?
It really does. Instead, their DNA showed strong genetic ties to local populations. North African, Sicilian, Asian people. This fundamentally changes how we understand their expansion. It shows that Phoenician identity, Phoenician culture, it spread more like an influential idea, spread through extensive trade networks, yeah, but also through intermarriage and widespread cultural exchange. Much more organic than just shiploads of settlers arriving. It reframes them, not as mass colonizers defined by blood, but as these brilliant cultural innovators, unified perhaps by a shared language, common rituals, this vast commercial network. Their influence permeated across diverse existing populations rather than replacing them.
Okay, that's a whole new way to think about them. Now, here's where it gets truly, like, mind-bending. What if the secrets aren't just buried in the dirt, right? What if they're hidden in ancient archives, even in texts we thought were completely unreadable, because new technology is literally unveiling hidden layers of history right before our eyes?
Yeah.
This is where it gets really sci-fi.
Oh, absolutely. One of the most monumental breakthroughs, certainly in 2024, involves the recovery of a lost work by the Epicurean philosopher Philodemus. It was found in a charred scroll from Herculaneum, the city buried by Vesuvius in 79 AD. These scrolls were carbonized, basically baked hard, but preserved. For centuries, they were considered too delicate to unroll. They'd just crumble. But now, using high-energy X-rays and this revolutionary AI technology, part of something called the Vesuvius Challenge, researchers have virtually unrolled a scroll. They can essentially read the ink on the papyrus without ever physically touching the fragile scroll itself. And what they found was a lost text on vices by Philodemus.
Okay, stop. So we have AI reading ancient Greek texts that haven't been seen by human eyes in, what, 2,000 years? It's like having a digital archaeologist that can see through solid rock, basically. What else could it uncover? You said there are hundreds of these scrolls, right? Imagine all the lost philosophy, the poems, the historical accounts just sitting there waiting. This could totally transform what we think we know about the classical world. What secrets are they hiding?
It's truly astonishing. There's no other word for it. This isn't just about recovering artifacts. It's ancient wisdom reemerging, readable after 2 millennia. And yes, with potentially hundreds, maybe nearly 800 other scrolls waiting, this silent library might very soon roar back to life. It could offer just unprecedented insights into classical philosophy, literature, even daily life. And it's not just scrolls from Herculaneum. In Egypt, in a Roman-era burial pit near ancient Philadelphia, they found a papyrus. Dates to the 3rd century CE, and it contains nearly 100 lines from 2 lost tragedies by Euripides, the great Athenian playwright from the 5th century BCE. These are extended passages of dialogue, including some really biting philosophical lines that haven't been read for almost 2 millennia. Just incredible.
Wow. Lost Euripides. And the AI isn't stopping there, is it? It's even changing what we know about some of the most famous ancient texts we thought we understood pretty well, like the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Precisely. Also in 2024, researchers used a machine learning model, they actually named it Enoch, to analyze the handwriting on Dead Sea Scroll fragments, specifically on fragments that hadn't been securely dated before. It looked at incredibly fine-grained features, subtle differences in how letters were formed. And what they found was truly significant. Many of these manuscripts are far older than previously believed. For example, a fragment of the Book of Daniel. It now dates to 230-160 BCE. That's right around the time scholars think it was originally composed. And a copy of Ecclesiastes, Qoheleth, has been pushed back to the late 3rd century BCE.
So AI is telling us these ancient super important texts are actually way older than the experts thought, like closer to when they were written. It makes you wonder what other secrets are hidden just in the curves and brushstrokes of ancient writing that maybe they didn't want us to know or just couldn't see before.
Well, this new dating suggests some biblical texts were being copied, and perhaps even moving towards canonization much earlier than previously assumed. It pushes back our understanding of their textual history. It sheds light on periods of literacy and scholarship, scribal activity that were once considered sort of dark or poorly understood. It really just underscores the power of new technology and reevaluating these long-held assumptions about foundational texts. It's giving us much higher resolution.
Okay, my mind is officially blown. But wait, if ancient writings are being redated, what about entirely undiscovered ancient writings? Or even like completely new languages we never even knew existed?
That happened too. Another remarkable linguistic discovery came out of Turkey in 2024. Researchers were re-examining thousands of clay tablets from the Hittite archive at Bozkır Hattusa, huge archive, and they noticed about 174 tablets written in a language they didn't recognize, totally unknown. Luckily, a scribal note on one tablet gave them the key. It said the text was written in the language of the land of Kalashuma, unquote. This language, now called Kaskian or Kalashman, seems to be related to Luwian, part of the Anatolian branch of Indo-European. It helps fill in missing branches of that massive language family tree. It's an incredibly rare glimpse of a language that survived only because a big Bronze Age empire happened to record it for administrative or perhaps ritual reasons, like finding a new piece of a giant linguistic puzzle.
Wow, a whole lost language. Okay, and what about the physical structures, the really big ones we thought we understood? Like, say, under a certain very famous pyramid in Egypt that's held its secrets for millennia.
Right, Giza. Beneath Khufu's Great Pyramid, in the royal necropolis there, cutting-edge scanning technology deployed in 2024 unveiled something perplexing. They used ground-penetrating radar and electrical resistivity tomography waves to see under the ground without digging. And they found a previously unknown L-shaped structure. It stretches about 33 feet long, 6.5 feet deep, just below the surface near the middle of the pyramid's base. And this L-shape seems to connect to an even deeper chamber or void, whose purpose is completely unknown. This isn't just a small crack. It's a significant, previously undetected anomaly.
An L-shaped mystery structure under the Great Pyramid, connected to a deeper chamber. So what is down there? Is it more hidden chambers? Unexplored passages leading to, I don't know, somewhere else entirely. The mysteries of Giza just keep getting weirder. It definitely makes you wonder about the full extent of the pyramid's internal design. Maybe it wasn't just a tomb. What other secrets could it still be holding? Okay, this is fascinating. Sometimes the story changes simply because we realize things happened much, much earlier, or in totally different places than we expected. It's like finding entire lost cities where you thought, only uninhabited jungle lay.
Indeed, and we've seen some major examples of that recently. Take the discovery on the island of Tongatapu in the Pacific Kingdom of Tonga, announced in 2024. Archaeologists found evidence of early urbanism mounds, large structures, central places dating back to around 300 CE. Now that makes them 700 years earlier than previously thought for significant urbanization in the Pacific Islands. This wasn't a dense European-style city, mind you. It's described as low-density urbanization, essentially a sophisticated network of dispersed settlements and infrastructure. But it was clearly designed to support a growing population and fostered significant social and economic changes much, much earlier than we previously believed possible in that part of the world.
700 years earlier.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's not just Tongatapu, right? This LIDAR technology keeps revealing even more astonishing ancient urban centers where we least expected them. Places that challenge our old assumptions about where advanced civilizations could even flourish.
Absolutely. LIDAR, which uses laser pulses to map the ground even through dense jungle canopy, has been a complete game-changer for archaeology, especially in tropical regions. It revealed Valeriana in Ecuador. This was a large ancient Maya urban hub. It flourished from about 750 to 850 CE. Had a population maybe up to 50,000 people. We're talking 6,500 structures identified, pyramids, plazas, raised causeways connecting different areas, a major center. And similarly, maybe even more startlingly, the Upana Valley cities in the Ecuadorian Amazon, also revealed by LIDAR. These sites show a complex network of settlements connected by roads with plazas, ceremonial structures, rivaling the size and complexity of the Maya garden cities we knew about, or even the Giza Plateau complex. And the kicker, they predate other known large-scale Amazonian urban systems by perhaps 1,000 years, dating back as far as 500 BCE.
Hold on. We were always told tropical regions like the Amazon basically stifled large, organized civilizations, that the environment was too difficult. But here you're telling me there are these massive, highly organized cities, complete with pyramids and causeways just hiding under the trees. In plain sight, technologically speaking, it truly makes you wonder what other huge, forgotten civilizations are still covered by jungles or maybe desert sand, just waiting for us to point the right tech at them.
It absolutely forces us to reconsider the adaptability and ingenuity of ancient peoples, and to acknowledge that urban development took many, many different forms across the globe, not just the dense monumental cities we often picture from places like Mesopotamia or Rome. These Amazonian and Pacific examples show incredible adaptation.
Okay, and it's not just cities, is it? Even the origins of fundamental human achievements, things we kind of take for granted, are being pushed way back in time or relocated to unexpected places.
Correct. Consider something like the history of winemaking in Italy. Seems pretty well established, right? But new analysis reported 2024-2025 looked at over 1,700 ancient grape seeds from 25 different sites across Italy, and they found that around 1300 to 1100 BCE, so Middle Bronze Age grape seeds, started consistently showing traits of cultivated grapes, not wild ones. This marks the clear birth of viticulture, grape cultivation for wine in Italy. And that's centuries earlier than the previous consensus, which is more like 1200, 1000 BCE. It suggests local Italian innovation, not just knowledge imported from the Asian or Near East.
So even our history of wine, which feels like such a basic human pleasure, is being rewritten. Okay, what about even more fundamental stuff, like how and when we started working with metals?
Right, metallurgy. Evidence from the Sivakkalai area down in Tamil Nadu in South India points to remarkably sophisticated metalworking happening much earlier than thought. Definitely by 1500 BCE, they had highly refined copper and bronze industries. That alone is a big deal for the region's timeline. But even more provocatively, researchers found traces of iron, actual worked iron artifacts, it seems, in layers that appear to date to an astonishing 3300 BCE.
3300 BCE, iron. Isn't that like way, way earlier than the Iron Age is supposed to have started anywhere? That would be a complete game changer.
It absolutely would. Now, that specific iron finding needs more confirmation, more testing to be fully accepted. Dating can be complex, but even the confirmed early copper and bronze industry at 1500 BCE is a major breakthrough for South Indian archaeology. It shows complex technological processes were happening centuries earlier there than once thought. If that super early iron date holds up, yes, it would fundamentally reshape the entire global history of ironworking. We'd have to rethink everything.
Wow. Okay. Imagine ironworking potentially 2,000 years earlier than generally accepted for its widespread use. It just makes you wonder what other basic inventions, what other technologies were actually around far earlier, maybe in places we've just overlooked or haven't excavated enough.
It certainly opens up incredibly exciting new avenues for research, and it compels us to constantly question the established timelines, especially comparing different continents and regions.
And even like iconic historical events, things we've read about in textbooks for decades, are getting a fresh scientific look that changes the story.
The Siege of Masada in Israel is a fantastic example of this, with new research published in 2024. The main historical account we have is from Josephus, the Roman Jewish historian, and he implies the Romans spent months, a long time, building the ramp and siege works to take the desert fortress. However, researchers used modern tech high-resolution 3D modeling based on drone photogrammetry, which is basically creating super precise 3D maps from thousands of aerial photos. They modeled the terrain, the Roman camps, the huge siege ramp, and then they calculated the amount of work needed. Their calculations showed that Rome's incredibly efficient military engineers could have built the entire massive siege system, the camps, the wall, the ramp, in just 11 to 16 days, assuming a workforce of around 5,000 legionaries, which is plausible.
11 to 16 days, not months. That's astonishingly fast. So what we pictured as this long, drawn-out, grueling siege might actually have been this lightning-fast, almost surgical operation by the Romans. It highlights an incredible level of efficiency, maybe even a bit terrifying in its precision.
It truly reframes our picture of Masada's fall, yes.
Yeah.
It highlights the astonishing logistical brilliance and sheer engineering capability of Roman siegecraft. It turns what we thought was a drawn-out struggle into an almost impossibly rapid deployment of resources and manpower. It also prompts us to consider how historical accounts, even from eyewitnesses like Josephus, might reflect perception or narrative emphasis rather than purely objective timescales for every detail.
Right, the story versus the raw data. Okay, I mean, and maybe one of the most intriguing revisions, this one really surprised me, comes from the very people who dramatically shaped much of early medieval Europe. The Huns.
Ah, yes, the Huns. New genetic research, again from 2024, looking at Hunnic genetic ancestry across Europe and Asia, has revealed something really surprising and much more nuanced than the old story. See, for generations, the popular image and even much scholarship believed the Huns were this massive migration wave pouring out of Central Asia, possibly direct descendants of the earlier Xiongnu Confederation.
Yeah.
But these new genetic studies looked at individuals buried in graves associated with the Hunnic period across Eurasia, and they found that most of the population living under Hunnic rule, especially in Europe, had predominantly European ancestry, not Central or East Asian.
Wait, what? So the Huns weren't really Huns, genetically speaking, at least not most of them. They weren't this giant conquering horde sweeping across Europe, ethnically distinct, but more like a relatively small group of elites, kind of influencing and integrating with the existing populations. That's a fundamentally different picture of empire building, like elite influencers, not a giant invasion force.
It paints a far more nuanced picture exactly. Rather than overwhelming conquest by sheer numbers, the genetics suggest that a relatively small group of Eastern origin elites, people with genetic ties to Central East Asia, perhaps including Attila's own lineage, entered Europe. And they built this vast power base primarily through, well, diplomacy, strategic alliances, military prowess, of course, but also by incorporating and leading existing European populations, Goths, Alans, others. So it's less about population replacement, more about political and military takeover led by a distinct elite group. This fundamentally changes our understanding of the Hunnic Empire's formation and how power was actually wielded in that very volatile period of European history.
Wow, okay, so even the Huns weren't quite who we thought they were. It's truly incredible how the past just keeps unfolding, isn't it? Revealing layer after layer of the cool, the weird, and definitely the possible. These discoveries from just the last year or two, 2024, 2025, they aren't just filling in little gaps in the map. They're genuinely prompting us to fundamentally rethink ancient history. From the grand narratives of empire and colonization down to the subtle details of daily life, like how people navigated the sea or decided to organize their towns, or even what languages they spoke.
And it just goes to show you, doesn't it? The story of humanity is far, far from finished. There's always more to learn, there are always more assumptions to question, and there are definitely more secrets waiting to be uncovered, whether they're buried deep beneath our feet, hidden in plain sight in ancient texts we couldn't read before,
Yeah.
or even written in our very DNA. The past isn't some fixed monument we just look at. It's a dynamic, constantly evolving story that we're learning to read in new ways all the time.
So what stands out to you from today's deep dive? What historical belief, what thing you thought you knew, do you now kind of wonder about? Thank you so much for joining us on this wild ride through time. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button to catch all our future deep dives into the cool, weird, and possible.